Να περάσουμε στην δεύτερη ανακοίνωση του κυρίου Βλαντίμιρ Μποζινόβιτς. Είναι υποψήφιος διδάκτορ του Πανεπιστημίου της Κωνσταντινούπολης, Φιλοσοφική Σχολή. Θα μιλήσει με θέμα αρχιτεκτονικός διάκοσμος του εξωτερικού νάρθηκα της Μονής Χιλανδαρίου.
Okay. Thank you for having me.
Στα αγγλικά θα είναι η ανακοίνωση.
So, in the following 20 minutes, we shall conduct a general survey of architectural decoration of the Chilandar exonarthex. However, I particularly intend to focus on problems regarding stages of execution, since carved decoration of this structure belongs to different periods of time and also has many spolia. In previous researches, this has created confusion about dating of certain elements and therefore has to be reconsidered. The exonarthex of Chilandar Monastery, I suppose that some of you know, still presents an enigmatic structure since no consensus has been made about the identity of its patron. As it is generally known, most of the scholars have posed that outer narthex was built by Prince Lazar Hrebeljanovic, sometimes around 8th decade of the 14th century. On the other hand, Slobodan Ćurčić proposed earlier dating during the reign of Emperor Stefan Dušan around the mid of the 14th century. Most of the previous scholars have constructed their hypothesis primarily on the analysis of sculpture decoration, which has relation to architecture sculpture of Moravan Serbia during second half of the 14th and first half of the 15th century. It is being considered that closest analogy in decoration is Church of St. Stefan, known as Lazarica, a palace chapel of Prince Lazar Hrebeljanovic, which was built around 1377-78. So you can see actually, okay, the rosettes are actually the main argument. So, another argument is oral tradition kept in Chilandar Monastery that considers Prince Lazar as patron of the structure, from which it is generally known as Lazar's narthex. Oral tradition has been visualized in the 19th century dictatorial portrait of Prince Lazar in the interior of the building. Moreover, heraldic emblem of helmet with the crest in the form of bull horns, symbol of Lazarevich family, that is depicted on one slab in South Bifora, was also sometimes related to the patronage of Prince Lazar. This is the slab. Here you can see the seal of Prince Lazar, which is to the National Museum in Belgrade. So the helmet with this crest in the form of horns, it's actually depicted on Chilandar exonarthex. However, I think that emblem on the exonarthex is not the symbol of Prince Lazar. Exonarthex is attached to a western facade of the Church of the Presentation of the Virgin that was built by King Milutin probably during second decade of the 14th century. It has been noticed that architecture of the outer narthex was based on the model of older inner narthex of King Milutin's church. Present lateral facades of both structures are arranged in a similar manner, with bifora openings in the west and portals in the east. So you can see bifora on the exonarthex, also on the inner narthex of King Milutin's church, portals also in the eastern parts, and the base plan actually is also identical. So the architect of the exonarthex actually almost copied the previous one. However, according to several important studies, it has been convincingly argued that exonarthex was originally erected as an open structure. Western facade was composed of 3 large arcades and lateral facades with bifora openings in the west and arcades in the east. After construction, all of the openings were enclosed with portals, windows, and parapets. It is difficult to state exactly when such intervention has taken place. It could have happened immediately after construction, or, which seems more probable, during later decades. So it seems that exonarthex was built like this, and then later was enclosed, and this is how it looks like today. So here only we have a portal from the 18th century. Therefore, a more proper approach for the analysis of sculpture decoration of Chilandar exonarthex would be division between the elements that were implemented in the structure during and after construction, as you can see from this picture, the elements from the first stage are positioned mostly in the upper zone and outside of the openings, while elements from the second stage are located inside the openings. So this was implemented in the structure during construction, and this was added later. We shall conduct a survey of all the elements, and at the end I will point some conclusions. So rosettes of the exonarthex, it was noticed before, are very similar to rose windows of Prince Lazar's Court Church of St. Stephen in Kruševac. However, they are not completely identical, and the dating of the whole structure, in my opinion, should not be based just on this analogy. Rosettes of the outer narthex are not fully perforated and surrounded with cable motif as those of Lazaritsa, and moreover, quite similar decorative elements appear on other Moravan churches, not just on Lazaritsa. But it is interesting that almost all of them are matching, so you can see comparative. So the difference is this cable motif. We don't have this cable motif on the rosettes of the exonarthex, and also you see these are fully perforated, and these are not completely perforated. And also this mortar, which is added later, makes the situation more difficult to know actually how they really made originally. So. It is interesting that the only ornamented capital of the dome of the exonarthex is positioned on the northeast colonnette. So only this capital is ornamented. Other capitals don't have any decoration. It seems that such solution was applied since this is the only fully visible capital from the main section of the monastery courtyard. Identical motif appears on capitals of colonnettes of the dome of Ljubostinja Church, which was erected before 1389. It's identical ornament. I'm sorry if you cannot see here, but you have to trust my word, it's the same. Priority of north facade is emphasized with the archivolts of northern bifora that are decorated in sculpture and painted ornaments in the tympanum above. Motifs depicted on these archivolts have analogies within decoration of Lazaritsa and Ljubostinja churches in Serbia. So these palmettes are also depicted in Ljubostinja, and this interlaced geometrical pattern, we have it on the archivolts of Lazaritsa. During construction, at the first stage of the work, 3 corbels with depiction of human and animal faces in the Romanesque manner were implemented into the structure. They very likely represent spolia from the period of King Milutin. It seems that before the erection of Chilandar exonarthex, there was an older structure on the site, perhaps in the form of the open porch, built at the same time as Catholicon. Several corbels could have belonged to this building or to original fiale, also from the beginning of the 14th century. They bear a close resemblance with 3 corbels about the main portal of King Milutin's church, as well as with preserved fragments of sculpture from Banjska monastery. So therefore, it seems very likely that they were produced by the same workshop of artisans who actually worked for King Milutin. So these are the corbels of the exonarthex. These are the corbels about the west portal of the King Milutin's church. These are from Banjska, which you can see actually it's identical. And this is also known as Bogorodica Sokolica, but you can see how the faces have great similarities in iconography, also the way eyes are depicted, nose, mouth. This is all actually a work of the same workshop, by my opinion. During construction of the building, 2 slabs were incorporated in the north facade of the outer narthex. Dating of these elements has remained uncertain. It seems that marble slab with the images of angels that is positioned in the pilaster belongs to the 14th century, or perhaps time of the erection of the exonarthex. Faces of angels, including human mask, on the top of the parapet have great resemblance with another depiction of human mask between archivolts of northern bifora of the exonarthex. So you see this face, actually it's very, very similar to this face of the angel here. So this was carved at the time of the erection of the exonarthex. So this is why I think that this parapet, which actually has a dimension the same as the pilaster, was also carved maybe by the same sculptor. Also similar faces, they have sort of like mustaches. They appear also in Morava sculpture, for example in Kalinic. You can see it more better. It's some stylistic mark, actually. So this slab is problematic. It certainly represents Polia, although it has similarity with one parapet from the second decade of the 14th century. It seems to be older, perhaps from the 12th century. Đurđe Bošković thought that it was done by the same artisan, but I think it's not, and because there is one slab in the Lavra which is very, very, very similar to this one. So I put date 12th century, but it doesn't have to be correct. So now we are moving to the second stage of the execution of architecture sculpture. During these additional works, all of the openings were enclosed with portals, windows, and parapets, but they were all made of material in secondary use, so they use actually old material to do this. Portals were positioned on all three facades of the exonarthex. However, in the 18th century, new Baroque portal was installed on the west side of the structure. So we don't know how the western portal actually looked like. Of remaining two medieval portals, north entrance is more elaborately decorated. It has been noticed that the composition of north entrance has similarities with the western portal of King Milutin's church. In both cases, we have this lintel which is supported by three consoles, so you can see that they apply the same solution here. So they probably use this as a model for this portal. Moreover, north portal of the outer narthex was surely conducted by less skillful artisans who were inspired by the decoration of older Catholicon. Its door frames are flanked with additional elements of irregular size carved in shallow relief. The analogous interlaced pattern is to be found at the bottom of the one slab of Chilandar Catholicon, more exactly on western parapet of northern conch, executed by the artisans of King Milutin. So you can see that actually these two patterns are the same. So this was a problem in the earlier research, but it seems that this sculptor who was in charge for the execution of the north portal actually saw this pattern on the north facade in the north conch and then just copied it later here. And you can see that the quality of execution is obviously not the same. So later before they were dated in the same period, but they're not. They're from the different periods. Motifs that are depicted on the bottom of the lintel of north portal, including frieze between consoles, have close resemblance to so-called Rumi palmettes in the early Ottoman art in Anatolia. So they are on the frieze between the consoles and also here on the ends. Okay, so this is the same. You can see better here. Like this kind of palmettes are are appearing in early Ottoman art, for example, in Bursa, in Iznik, but you cannot find this anywhere in Serbia. It's just on Chilandar Catholicon. So I think that this means that they were not executed during the reign of Prince Lazar, because at that time influence of Ottoman art wasn't directly manifested in Serbian sculpture. It seems more logical that they were produced during later decades, as well as the most of the decoration from the second stage. South portal has reduced decoration with two corbels that are flanking lintel above the entrance. They are conducted in different manner than other corbels of the exonarthex and western portal of King Milutin's church, and they are also carved from older fragment of columns. So here you can see these corbels of from the artisans of King Milutin are very well made, and these actually they used old fragments of columns. So the material is in the secondary use here. So to me, it seems more logical that these two corbels are copies of images from one console above western portal of King Milutin's church and console on the north wall of the exonarthex. For example, Vojislav Korach thought that they are the same, made by the same artisans. I think that this one is copy of this one, and this one presents copy of this one. So here you can also see that they repeated some of the motifs. Also, another example, the decoration of the second stage is repeating motifs from the first stage, can be noticed on window frames in North Bifora that are ornamented with angelic figures. They have great resemblance with the figures of cherubim from the older slab that is built into a north pilaster. So it seems that this sculptor who did this decoration copied also from here. The most significant motifs for our research are depicted within decoration of north and south Bifora openings. On both sides of the structure, there are two, altogether four, lavishly decorated parapets. Three of them contain representations of heraldic emblems. Parapet in South Bifora both of the parapets in South Bifora are not made from one solid slab of stone, which indicates lack of proper material. Western parapet consists of three parts of older slabs. It is decorated with two crosses in the upper part and four rosettes in lower section. I also think that central composition here, that this actually represents a copy of this composition in just more liberal. So here we see the same rosettes. Here there are four, and the crosses are the same. So, eastern parapet in South Bifora of the outer narthex with the image of helmet with horns consists of two parts. So you can also see that this is not one slab, two slabs connected. Central motif, which is emblem of Lazarevich family, is flanked with presentations of eagles and dragons. Symbolism of such composition can easily be interpreted in Christian context as triumph of virtue over sin. Zoomorphic figures in this composition might have had also additional function, especially images of dragons that are positioned as supporters of the emblems. So this important detail was not recognized by earlier scholars. So I think, this is not my hypothesis. It's Professor Alexander Palavestra, but I had consultations with him. So this is what he noticed. These two dragons here are holding the central medallion, the emblem. So they are holders of the emblem. It's not just any kind of decoration. A representation of dragons in combination with heraldic symbol of Lazarevich family can be directly related to Despot Stefan, son of Prince Lazar, who was a knight of the Order of the Dragon. Order has been established in Hungary in December 1408. Most of the members usually depicted images of dragons as part of their heraldic symbol. In a similar manner, dragons are presented on the coat of arms of Krbavsky family. Names of two members from this family, of Count Charles and John, are mentioned in the founding charter of the Order of the Dragon, along with the name of Stefan Lazarevich. The original presentation of Krbavsky coat of arms is still visible on Gothic water well from the early 15th century in the fortress of Grobnik in Croatia. So here you can see the dragons holding the central emblem, which is in the form of the shield, which is, according to European heraldic, more correct. But still, I think that these images are related. It is important to point out that heraldic images of dragons, of adored dragons, are also depicted on western slab of northern Bifora of Chilandar outer narthex. With the peak of snouts, dragons are supporting a crown for which it is considered to present a heraldic symbol of Stefan Lazarevich. Identical crown is depicted on seals of two charters issued by this ruler to Chilandar monastery at the beginning of the 15th century. So this motif here, it's a bit controversial, but it's being considered that it's not just vegetative decoration, And then, when you compare it with the seals of Despot Stefan, he's actually wearing a crown with very, very similar motif. And there are also dragons supporting. So in Krbavsky family, there is also a crown above the dragons. And so it is very tempting to consider representations of dragons on two slabs of Chilandar exonarthex as heraldic emblems of Stefan Lazarevich. As we have seen, especially important arguments can be images of dragons that are holding the emblem of Lazarevich family and dragons that are supporting, say, crown of Despot Stefan. So if this hypothesis is correct, then these are the only preserved symbols of Despot Stefan with the so-called emblem of the dragon, because there are no others. Eastern slab in North Bifora is composed in a very similar manner as the western one. Central medallion has representation of double-headed eagle. Earlier scholars have related this symbol to the house of Nemanjić, although later researchers have shown that it also presents emblem of Lazarevich family. It appears on coinage of Despot Stefan in the heraldic form, and also motif of double-headed eagle is carved in tympanum of Lazarica, ambo of Ljubostinja, and altar window of Kalenic churches, all of which were erected under the patronage of Lazarevich family. So Kalenic church is it's being considered that it was erected by Protovestier Bogdan, but recent research are showing that Despot Stefan probably was also involved in the construction of Kalenic. And decoration of two architraves above window frames on west facade seems to be actually the oldest of the outer narthex. Horizontal elements element that is positioned above the northern window, so here, was dated in 11th or 12th century even. It is very interesting that another fragment with the same decoration has been discovered in 1989 among the ruins inside the monastery courtyard. So such findings actually indicates possibility that both of them could have belonged to much older structure in Chilandar monastery or even previous church from the end of the 12th century, which was rebuilt by Saint Sava and Stefan Nemanja. And after this church was demolished, the new one erected on its site, fragments of architecture decoration could have been preserved, later implemented in the monastery structures, including exonarthex. So I'll just conclude in the end. Sculpture decoration of Chilandar outer narthex has been executed in two stages. In the first stage, carved elements were implemented into the structure during construction. As posed by earlier scholars, this could have occurred sometimes around the mid or during 8th decade of the 14th century. While dating of the outer narthex, by my opinion, remains uncertain, there is no doubt that it was erected as an open structure. Iconography of architectural sculpture from the first stage of works has close analogies to decoration of churches in Moravan Serbia, as Lazarica and Ljubostinja. Moreover, in the first stage, spolia was built into the structure, corbels from the second decade of the 14th century, executed by the artisans of King Milutin, and one slab with perhaps from the 12th century, which is not certain. Second stage, or additional works on the outer narthex, can be dated more properly. Several decades after construction of the exonarthex, openings were enclosed with portals, slabs, and windows. Decoration of these elements was conducted in late Moravan sculpture, even includes ornaments from early Ottoman art. All of the elements inside the openings of the outer narthex are in secondary use, but most of them were carved again on site by the artisans from Serbia. Important argument for such thesis is repetitions or copying of motifs from older sculpture decoration of Chilandar Catholicon, as I have shown. According to three heraldic emblems in the north and south bifora of the structure, Ctetor of additional works on the outer narthex might have been Despot Stefan Lazarevich. Depictions of the emblem of the dragon on two slabs indicates possibility that exonarthex was enclosed sometimes between December of 1408, when the order was founded, and Despot's death in July of 1427. From one charter issued by Despot Stefan to Chilandar Monastery in 1411, we know that he possessed 6 adelphats in the monastery. it seems that Despot Stefan considered Chilandar as a place of refuge in the case of bad political circumstances in Serbia. And closing of the outer narthex might have been somehow related to Despot's intentions to withdraw to Chilandar. I mean, it's not excluded. So, and material that was reused during second stage of works on the outer narthex belonged to some older structure from the 12th century in the monastery complex or its vicinity, so it is not also excluded that it might have belonged to the previous church on this site from the late 12th century. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for being also on time. And it was very interesting. I'm also surprised every time I see, Chilandar. It's very well studied since always. I have a big bibliography about that, and you can always find new things to discuss and make this research. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ερωτήσεις στα αγγλικά ή στα ελληνικά μπορούμε να μεταφράσουμε. Ο κύριος Πυριβάτριτς.
Well, it was very interesting to hear this paper. One suggestion which is connected to the problem of the construction of the exonarthex. There is one article of Professor Branislav Todić published in the new volume of Hilandarski Zbornik, where this problem was discussed again, and there was a solution offered that it has actually been built by Daniel II.
Okay, that is new information for me.
It's important information, and I would have one question. What is the basis for the conclusion that Kalenić has been built also by Stefan Lazarević, not only by Protovestiar Bogdan?
Okay, so thank you. First of all, that is very useful to think. I mean, Daniel II, that makes it much earlier than we thought. Even Slobodan Ćurćija proposed the middle of the 14th century, so it's even before that.
Yes, it's during the Stefan Dechansky
so this actually this changes everything. Okay. Yes, about Kalenić, it's not mine hypothesis. It's Branislav Cvetković wrote an article. It's actually published maybe 10 years ago, but it's not so maybe well known. It's about Kalenić, about political aspects of iconography and so forth. And this double-headed eagle, and also he discussed about other representations on Kalenić windows, which is depiction of some fighting a lion and so on. So he relates this, the symbolism of these scenes, he relates to Despot Stefan Lazarević. And I would say the main argument of his would be that the actitorial composition in Kalenić, that Despot Stefan is also depicted holding the model of the temple along with Bogdan. And this is pretty damaged on that part, which is problematic, but it's pretty good argument. And the point of his point is that this is not the only case that Despot Stefan was involved in the joint dictatorship. There is also example of Rudenice, and he also considers Kalenić to be another example. So yeah, that's his hypothesis.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Άλλη ερώτηση, δεν ξέρω, καταλάβατε την... Είναι λίγο δύσκολο να μεταφράσω τώρα όλο αυτό που είπατε στα ελληνικά. Υπάρχει κάποια άλλη ερώτηση? Να προχωρήσουμε, ευχαριστούμε πολύ.
Thank you so much.